In coronavirus news, everybody handles the disease in the dumbest possible way. Stocks begin to surge as they hit what could be a hard bottom. The election is coming up, and we will see what actually did happen in California. And Mara Gay decides that she needs to double down on her claims that she was in the right on the math error that she read online. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Somehow I always manage to start this show with something in the frame, and I don't know how I do it, but yeah, my desk is a little bit messy, I'm not going to lie, and my water bottle was right in the frame on this one here. But I am Jay Edgar, this is Contemporary, and we've got so much stupidity to talk about here because, even in small town Wisconsin, which I thought was going to be immune to all of this stupidity, I walked into our local grocery store, the one that I rarely shop at. I didn't go to the big store because I knew what was going to happen. I knew I was going to go down the toilet paper aisle and see empty shelves. So rather than going to grocery shop in town, I went to our little one around the corner and just to see what would happen here. And I thought everything was going to be cool because I walked in and I saw all the shelves were neatly stocked, very well done. Actually, they were even very neatly faced and everything looked good. It looked like there wasn't a rash of panic buying. And then I went down the toilet paper aisle and I realized that not even small town America is immune from the hysteria, just the absolute hysteria that is surrounding everything here. But we'll talk a bit about what's going on with that first. Starting off with Ben Shapiro, which I actually got to listen to this on a show yesterday, but Shapiro decided that he needed to weigh in on Trump's epic speech from the other day. So we'll start out with Fox News here. And this is going to be a heavy mainstream day too, by the way. It's like I'm looking over at my tabs here and I see Fox, CNN, CNBC. I do have a little bit from The Hill and NPR, but I just got the big guys today, unfortunately. So maybe we'll get some people writing over at Freedom Scoop here in the near future, and I can be like Matt Walsh and just start citing from my own company. Because who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love a self promo in the middle of a podcast here? Anyway, let's see what Fox News has to say. So Ben Shapiro on Trump coronavirus address. Whoever greenlit that bleep show should be fired because everybody knows when you go over to the Ben Shapiro show, he doesn't get to say all the fun words like I do. This is from Yael Helon over at Fox News. And Yael, I am sorry if I mispronounced your first name once again. Conservative commentator Ben Shapiro did not hold back on his criticisms of President Trump's national address on coronavirus Wednesday night. No way! No way! Ben Shapiro ran his mouth? No way! Which he said was marred by a bunch of screw-ups that hampered the administration's efforts to contain the outbreak. Whoever greenlit this bleep show should be fired, Shapiro said on the Ben Shapiro show Wednesday. Seriously, it's not entirely Trump's fault because he has speechwriters do his thing for him, Shapiro continued, but it did not steady the markets. It did not make people feel more secure. Trump announced in his remarks Wednesday that the U.S. is suspending all travel from Europe to the U.S. for 30 days, beginning Friday at midnight in an effort to slow the spread of coronavirus. The president said the new travel exemptions do not apply to the United Kingdom, but failed to clarify that U.S. citizens and permanent residents could return from Europe, forcing the administration to issue clarifications on Thursday. And there's another quote here. Whoever put that in the teleprompter needs to be fired forthwith. If you're going to give a speech like that, you have to have everything locked down, Shapiro said. You're trying to provide a sense of solidity, that you know what you're doing, that the federal government has thought these policies out, and they are providing guidance to the people. So, I tend to agree with Shapiro, and yeah, there wasn't any details in there. I went back and listened to this after Contemporary yesterday, and yeah, there was no detail in any of this whatsoever. So nobody knew quite what was going on, and that's probably a big part of the reason that we saw the volatile stock markets that we saw yesterday. And I looked at some of the numbers. The stocks were trying. The people, like I had said yesterday, were coming together. They were trying. They were definitely trying to make this work because what we are seeing is not going to work long term for a lot of people, and we are going to see a lot of suffering. And I mean, I know the left in this country, especially the vocal progressives I don't think it's all the left. I think it's just the vocal progressives on Twitter in their echo chamber want to see a massive stock market crash so they can come in and institute glorious socialism no matter who suffers off of this. I give them more benefit of the doubt than a lot of my other fellow commentators do, but it's still disgusting to see that they're advocating for human suffering. So, but yeah, it's. I think for the most part, the American people want to see this go, and some of these stocks, there are going to be people that are going to be making bank off of this crash, because I know a lot of young people with some expendable income decided to jump in and buy a bunch of stocks. I didn't have the income, or not the income, but the money or cash on hand at the time to go and do some stock trading, but I kind of wish I had before seeing the numbers that came up today, because there are some people whose 401ks are going to look really nice by the end of the day if everything goes in the projected direction that it was going when markets opened. And even still, I think down the road that there are going to be a lot of people that are looking good off of this here. On other news, Dan Crenshaw got into the argument reacting to some comments that Joe Biden had to say. This is also from Fox News. This is from Don Colicchio. Dan Crenshaw rips Biden coronavirus tweet slamming Trump actions. Walls quite literally stop a virus. U.S. Representative Dan Crenshaw fired back overnight after former Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden criticized President Trump's actions on the coronavirus outbreak. "A wall will not stop the coronavirus," Biden wrote on Twitter Thursday night, attempting to link the outbreak to Trump's signature immigration goal of a strong barrier along the U.S.-Mexico border. "Banning all travel from Europe or any part of the world will not stop it," Biden continued, taking aim at the temporary travel policy Trump announced this week. "This disease could impact every nation and any person on the planet. We need a plan to combat it." Biden's tweet echoed the comments he made the same day in a speech in his home state of Delaware, which he represented in the U.S. Senate for more than 3 decades before becoming vice president under former President Barack Obama. But Crenshaw, a freshman Republican congressman from Texas, spotted what he viewed as flaws in Biden's thinking and shared his thoughts on a Twitter message of his own. "First, walls quite literally stop a virus," Crenshaw wrote. "It's kind of the whole point of a quarantine, for instance. Second, assuming you meant this metaphorically, health experts like Dr. Fauci and everyone else agree travel restrictions have vastly slowed the spread of the virus in the U.S. Crenshaw was referring to Dr. Anthony Fauci, a respected immunologist with the National Institutes of Health, who serves on the president's coronavirus task force, charged with crafting the federal government's response to the outbreak under the direction of Vice President Mike Pence. And of course, Joe Biden angrily fired back, "Well, I got hairy legs, and Corn Pop is going to come over there and whip out his straight razor and take out your other eye." But yes, I understand the sentiment to this, and it's something that I've sparred with libertarians on before, because I'm mostly libertarian, but I don't agree with their stance on free travel, border walls, and etc. I've sparred with this before, because if you can't vet who's coming in, you can't vet for disease or anything else like that. So, I mean, free and open travel spreads disease. You don't know who's coming in, you don't know what they have, and they don't have the medical apparatuses in some of these countries that people would freely be traveling from that they do here. Yes, we have some of the best medicine in this country, and we can take care of them once they're here, but if they're highly contagious with something, or, I don't know, some government slips a bioweapon into a person, because that's never happened in the history of the world before, then all of a sudden, it's here. Now, I don't necessarily agree completely with the European travel ban at this point, but after listening some more and researching some more about it, it does kind of make sense to me. But on the same token, yes, having that wall, being able to vet people coming in and making sure people are clean before they come in. It's especially in a pandemic point like this. I mean, people like Crenshaw said, they're locking themselves in their houses and letting the walls that surround them, like the walls that are surrounding me right now, protect them from the disease rather than just letting anybody walk into my living space and throw the coronavirus here. And it is one county away from me right now too. So, yeah. And we'll talk a bit about what happened. Well, we're going to talk about that now actually. What happened with the fact that it is one county away from here right now. So, this is according to CNBC, which we'll talk a bit about what happened there first. So, like I said in the beginning, I went over and I saw that the toilet paper aisle was wiped out. And yes, COVID-19 has shown up one county away from here. But it's been happening all over the place, especially in Wisconsin, though, because they made such a big deal about it on the news. I mean, we've got schools that are closing down right now. UW-Madison is going to be closed from the time they get back to their spring break. Elementary schools, I know, are going to be closing for 2 to 4 weeks at this point. So it makes absolute sense that people are panicking. But like I said when I was giving my anecdote, all of the rest of the store shelves were full. They were all full. I could go in and get however much food I wanted, which that's what you need in a crisis. You need food in a crisis. You don't need toilet paper, but that's exactly where they went for first, is the toilet paper. I live alone right now, and I have been using the same 12-pack for over a year, and oops, forgot to set the alarm off again. I am going to fix that at some point here. So yeah, I live alone. I've had a 12-pack, and I've had it for over a year, and I still have 4 rolls left. I am fine. I didn't need to go out and rush and buy it. Somebody sent me a meme when I took a Snapchat and I put it out on the shelves in the local grocery store, and one of my friends sent me a meme back that said, if you need 144 rolls of toilet paper for 2 weeks of quarantine, you needed to see a doctor before the coronavirus started up. So. And that's kind of my sentiment too, but CNBC seems to have an explanation as to why we panic and go for the toilet paper. So this is from Chloe Taylor over at CNBC. Here's why people are panic buying and stockpiling toilet paper to cope with coronavirus fears. Panic buying has been rife amid global spread of the new coronavirus, with consumers around the world stockpiling goods like hand sanitizer, canned foods, and toilet paper. The trend has seen stores ration products, with UK retailers limiting sales of hand hygiene products, while Australian shoppers have seen restrictions on the amount of toilet paper you can buy. Psychologists spoke to CNBC to weigh in on why our brains push us to panic buy, even when authorities are assuring the public there's no need to. According to Paul Marston, a consumer psychologist at the University of the Arts London, the short answer can be found in the psychology of retail therapy, where we buy to manage our emotional state. It's about taking back control in a world where you feel out of control, he said. More generally, panic buying can be understood as playing to our 3 fundamental psychology needs. Those needs are autonomy, or a need for control, relatedness, which Marston defines as we shopping rather than me shopping, and competence, which is achieved when making a purchase gives people a sense that they are smart shoppers. Meanwhile, Sander van der Linden, that's quite the last name, an assistant professor of social psychology at Cambridge University, said there were both generalized and coronavirus-specific factors at play. In the U.S., people are receiving conflicting messages from the CDC and the Trump administration, he said. A Boston guy going after Trump. Big surprise there. When one organization is saying it's urgent and another is saying it's under control, it makes people worry. President Donald Trump downplayed the impact of the U.S. coronavirus outbreak on Twitter this week, with a disconnect reportedly widening between the administration and U.S. health authorities. The virus is now present in at least 35 states, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. More generally, a fear contagion phenomenon was taking hold, van der Linden added. When people are stressed and their reason is hampered, or when people are stressed rather, their reason is hampered, so they look at what other people are doing. If others are stockpiling, it leads you to engage in the same behavior, he said. People see photos of empty shelves, and regardless of whether it's rational, it sends a signal to them that it's the thing to do. So, yes. What was that said? It was from Men in Black. I saw the quote going around, and I'm not sure. I don't remember that line being in the movie. I'm actually going to go watch that movie tonight after I get out of work. But a person is smart, and people are really, really dumb. Is the gist? That's paraphrasing, obviously, but when you get the mob mentality, people do what the leader does, and when you're in a panic, the mob mentality sets in. We see a lot of this in regular politics, and we see a lot of this as well once, the university idea, the anti-Trump idea. A lot of this is mob mentality that's going off with this. So that's part of the reason that we don't have a direct democracy in this country, because the mob mentality may lead us to make a bad decision and put an authoritative dictator in place rather than somebody who represents the people to the rest of the world. So think about that when you think about the Electoral College and you want to bomb it down. As for everything else, like I said, it's craziness, the fact that, the coffee aisle was stocked, the canned good aisles were stocked, the meat case was completely full, but that toilet paper aisle was just wiped out, done and gone. And there are other things that go along with that too, I'm thinking as well. I know if one or two stores say that they are going to put a cap on the amount of toilet paper that you buy, everyone else is going to go to all the other stores to try and get it. I know one of our local big box stores that we have here, it's called Menards. It's kind of the equivalent of a Home Depot, but it's small town and local here. Did have a limit on you could buy 3 big packs of toilet paper at a time, and you could not buy any more. So when people hear that on the news, they go to all the other stores and wipe them out instead. So that, it makes sense, but it still doesn't make sense. If you're going to go and spend all your money on the toilet paper, get some canned foods and some goods and some rice and some beans and some other stuff to go along with it. As we always say, be prepared, and like Tim Pool says, if you don't need it, then you have a really cool taco night one night. So one of the other controversies that came along with the coronavirus here is the fact that people were starting to talk about Nancy Pelosi trying to slip an abortion bill into this. Now, I haven't seen confirmation on this, and I haven't read the spending package yet, which I'm pretty positive it's going to be 1,000 pages long again, just like everything else that comes out of Congress at this point here. But people were saying that Pelosi was trying to sneak abortion funding into this here. Now, from what I understand, it's a workaround from the Hyde Amendment, and it's not even confirmed that it's in here, but I've got 2 different stories that talk about what happened with this. So first, from the Hill, Pelosi, House close to striking a deal with Trump on coronavirus response package. This is from Mike Lillis over at the Hill. Oh, and Scott Long too, over at the Hill. Go away, advertisement. House Democrats and the White House fell short of sealing a deal providing the economic help to the victims of the devastating coronavirus, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, said Thursday night. But an agreement, she quickly added, is all but assured on Friday. It's fair to say that we're close to an agreement, subject to the exchange of paper, and hope to have an agreement tomorrow, Pelosi told reporters just outside her office on the Capitol while shifting her teeth in nervousness. One way or another, Pelosi said, there will be a vote on Friday. The announcement came after hours of negotiations between Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, President Trump's point person, on the second round of emergency coronavirus relief. On Thursday, the two spoke at least 4 times by phone in search of a bipartisan stimulus bill that could pass through both chambers, a matter of increasing urgency in a week where the deadly pandemic rocked markets around the globe, shuttered U.S. schools, businesses, and the entire sports leagues, and forced officials to close off the U.S. Capitol to the public. The sides have been at odds over several provisions of the sweeping multi-billion-dollar package. Republicans, for instance, have balked at the Democrats' paid leave proposal, fearing it creates permanent entitlement benefits in lieu of simply addressing the current coronavirus. Democrats, for their part, have objected to GOP demands that the legislation include language explicitly prohibiting the use of federal funds for abortion services. Which seems to be the problem that we have going on here, and we'll talk about what Joy Reid had to say about this as well. But from what I understand out of this, from what I understand out of the Hill, and of course this is having not read the spending package itself, which, like I said, I usually do, the option is open to have the workaround to have any leftover funds used to go and fund Planned Parenthood or something else like that, because they can get around it because it's not expressly, it's earmarked for medical purposes, but it's not expressly written what those purposes are. So I'm going to look that up. I'm going to read that here over the weekend here. Maybe we'll talk about it on Ed Talk, depending on how much I know about it at the time here. But let's see what Joy Reid had to say about this. This is from Fox News, from Joseph A. Wolfson. Second time this week we've cited that guy, so. MSNBC's Joy Reid tweets about reports coronavirus spending bill included Hyde Amendment loophole. MSNBC host Joy Reid tweeted Thursday about reports that the proposed emergency spending bill from House Democrats to combat the coronavirus outbreak was halted over a dispute involving abortion. According to the White House officials, the administration had not supported the House bill as it was drafted. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin continues to work with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, on changing some language. One senior administration official described it as serious concerns among issues cited Medicaid increases with no structural reform, no Hyde protections, and PrEP Act language. I'm going to keep reading before I go off on this. Reid took to Twitter and reacted to one of her colleagues reporting on the dust-up between Democratic and Republican lawyers. Wow, Casey just reported that Republicans' objections to the White House or to House Democrats' emergency coronavirus bill include issues related to abortion. What does that have to do with COVID-19? Reid asked. The Daily Caller reported on Thursday that Pelosi sought funding as what was described as a loophole around the Hyde Amendment, which outlaws taxpayer-funded abortions, among other things included in the bill. One was a mandate for up to $1 billion to reimburse laboratory claims, which White House officials say would set a precedent of health spending without protections outlined in the Hyde Amendment, Daily Caller senior White House correspondent Christian Daytalk reported. Others joined Reid in tweeting about the alleged funding. This pretty much sums up everything up. Donald Trump is moving quickly to protect Americans from coronavirus and its economic impact. Democrats are spending their time trying to create an abortion slush fund, Donald Trump Jr. reacted. Using this crisis as a vehicle for appropriate tax dollars that can be spent on abortions is about as gross as it can possibly get. Appropriate only when it's only what's needed, no more and definitely no less, author Jason Hassan tweeted. And this is the last one here. Pelosi wanted to sneak in $1 billion in funding for abortion programs through the coronavirus stimulus package. Don't ever tell me Democrats aren't politicizing the situation, Human Events Managing Editor Ian Miles Chong said. So, once again, I don't know what's in the bill, and I'm definitely curious to read it at this point here, which I guess I can figure out. I can think of better ways to spend reading 1,000 pages of legalese, but if this is true, this is outrageous, and it's one of those things where it's hard to see which side is going to be right on it, because they both have their feet dug into their pet projects here in the midst of a crisis. And usually I'm okay with the government not being able to get anything done and things going to private charity, but I mean, this is what the mainstreams are out trying to report right now to keep us in panic, to keep us glued to our TVs so we can continue to watch the commercials for catheters and Birch Gold and all the other stuff that they need to peddle on their channels so that they can make money off of a dying cable market. But on top of it here, it's the mainstreams trying to keep us panicked so that we hate this president and everything about him, or we hate Democrats or everything about them. We are in the middle of what they are trying to show us as a crisis. If everything that they're saying is true, we'll all be dead in 6 months in this country unless we all quarantine and buy toilet paper forever. And that is the sticking point that they have right now, is whether or not they can use leftover funds for abortion. No, that's not the most important thing right now. And it was the same thing during the 2016 election when everything was coming down to what was going to happen to abortion. That wasn't the most important thing at the time. We still had people that weren't going to work. We were still in the midst of a financial crisis. We were still in the midst of wondering, some of us, where our next meals were going to come from. And that's all they could argue about was gay marriage and abortion. We can argue about that on a good economy. At the time, at 2016, all that we wanted to do was make sure that everybody could go to work, could provide for families, could start buying houses, and we could have another golden generation of economic prosperity. And this is just the same thing to me. Unless I actually specifically read something in the bill that says this is going to be a slush fund for abortion, that's all that this is here is Capitol Hill Democrats and Republicans arguing over their pet projects. So that's what I have on that. On a lighter note, let's talk about everybody's favorite New York representative, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which this is dumb. This is dumb for AOC, but she got on her Instagram Live and decided that she wanted to run her mouth again. So let's see what that happened there. This is from Sam Dorman over at Fox News, and they put the video of the Instagram Live very conveniently on this, so we'll turn the desktop audio on and we'll actually listen to what she had to say too. But let's read on first. AOC. People are avoiding Chinese restaurants due to straight-up racism surrounding coronavirus. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat New York, claimed that the coronavirus was having racist side effects because people were avoiding Chinese restaurants. Honestly, it sounds almost so silly to say, but there's a lot of restaurants that are feeling the pain of racism where people are literally not patroning Chinese restaurants. They're not patroning Asian restaurants because of just straight up racism around the coronavirus, she said during an Instagram Live session on Tuesday. Let's hear what that had to be before we go on to the verbal gaffes here. Let's get the headphones on. Turn the audio on for you guys.
Honestly, it sounds almost so silly to say, but there's a lot of restaurants that are feeling the pain of racism, where people are literally not patroning Chinese restaurants. They're not patroning Asian restaurants because of just straight up racism around the coronavirus. So,
I know the Daily Wire guys got on her yesterday because of the fact that patroning isn't actually a word. And I will give them credit on that. But, I mean, there's so much else wrong with this here. And so much else that goes on with making statements like what Representative Cortez is saying here. And she is not smart. If this is all an act to try and give her celebrity and give people something to talk about so she stays in the limelight and can possibly run for Senate, this is one of the most convincing acts I've ever seen. When it's been suggested to me that this is all an act to keep her famous. But if this is an act, this is probably this woman should be teaching at Juilliard, acting at some other prestigious acting school at this point, because she is either that dumb or she's just that damn good at acting. But the other side of that is true. I mean, Tim Pool was saying it, Walsh was saying it, Shapiro was saying it. They were all saying the same thing on this, is the fact that it's not just Chinese restaurants. I mean, I will make the admission that I stopped eating Chinese food around the time that coronavirus came out, but it had nothing to do with the virus. I've been eating Chinese food every Thursday due to an obsessive compulsive reaction to something that happened to me back when I still lived in the big city. Something there had happened to me, and my mind kind of caved a little bit there, and I started just going into patterns to heal. And one of the patterns was that I would eat Chinese food every Thursday night. and then do laundry. It started out with me just getting takeout so that I wouldn't have to cook while I was doing laundry for the whole night, and then it just evolved into me eating Chinese food every Thursday night. It was a Sheldon Cooper-esque kind of thing, but it happened, and it went along with that. And yeah, just a few weeks ago, I started feeling dread at the idea of eating Chinese food, and I'd been doing it for 5 years. More than 5 years. I've been doing it for 7 years at that point. Every Thursday for 7 years, I got Chinese food. I just got sick of it. But I did. I kept up with the OCD side of it and what originally prompted me to do it, and I was still going and getting some sort of takeout on a Thursday night after work and then coming home and doing work on a Thursday night. And just last night I said, I can't do this. There's so much going on right now. I don't even want to go into a restaurant right now. So I came home and I made meatballs instead. So yeah, it's not just the Chinese food restaurants. It is everybody. Everything is suffering right now. Like I said in the beginning, schools are shutting down. Elementary schools, middle schools, high schools are all shutting down because everybody's panicked about this. And again, they're all buying toilet paper like idiots currently. So that is what's going on. Hats off to you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for trying to take something just like this abortion thing, trying to take something out of context and using it to fuel your pet project. Well, I'm done talking about coronavirus for a little while here. I talked about it for a full 45 minutes yesterday, and I talked about it for another half an hour today, so let's talk about something else going on here. So, in good news, this is from CNBC, it looks like we are going to actually start seeing the stock market tick up a little bit here. Go away video. CNBC, they make it play no matter what. But I've got the volume cut here, so you can't hear it, even if it tries to give me volume off of this. This is from Fred Imbert and Yoon Lee and Eustace Huang over at CNBC. Stocks set to surge following the worst day since the '87 crash. S&P 500 futures hit limit up. And I've got this talking about S&P, and then I've got one for Dow from NPR as well. But let's read what we have here. U.S. stock futures surged in volatile trading on Friday as Wall Street tried to recoup some of the sharp losses suffered in the previous session, the worst since Black Monday's market crash in 1987. S&P 500 futures jumped more than 5% to reach their limit up level. These limit levels act as a ceiling for buying until regular trading begins and are meant to ensure orderly trading, so people aren't trampling themselves trying to take advantage of a bear market that we seem to have going on right now. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures were up more than 1,100 points, implying a gain of nearly 1,000 points. NASDAQ 100 futures also soared. The SPDR S&P 500 ETF Trust, which tracks the S&P 500, traded 5% higher. With stock futures at their upside limit, investors could get a better sense of where the market will open by tracking the ETF. And I thought that I left myself... No, I didn't. I used that to track the NPR. Let's just see where they are now that they're actually about an hour into trading here. Well, they're trying. They looks like the Dow Jones hit over 2,200 briefly, but dropped back down again. So they are trying. They are definitely trying at this point. Apple shares jumped nearly 5% in the pre-market after an analyst at Wells Fargo upgraded the tech giant to overweight from equal weight, citing a compelling risk-reward outlook. So all you Apple guys go and get your Apple stock at this point. Futures also got a boost after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said U.S. lawmakers in the White House were close to a deal on economic relief amid the coronavirus outbreak. We've resolved most of our differences, Pelosi said, or told reporters Thursday evening, noting it's about testing. So that kind of goes along with something that I said yesterday and earlier in the week as well, as we looked into the oil war, which I'm seeing under $2 a gallon oil here in southern Wisconsin, by the way, which is amazing. I've only seen that a handful of times since since it all jumped up when I was just in high school. I think it's only been like twice since I've been out of high school. Because I know once 9/11 happened, that was when it first got over $2 a gallon for the first time. And yeah, I think this is only the second time I've seen it under. But yeah, the markets don't like volatility. They don't like not knowing what's going on, and people panic buy, people panic sell. We're seeing it with toilet paper. It's the exact same thing. People are in a panic and monkey see, monkey do because somebody panicked, and now the whole world stampeded. And now they're starting to realize that the sky isn't falling, the world isn't going to end, and we might all be here for the most part tomorrow. And now they're trying to buy back up. And I heard the other day that Ford was at like $6, which I might actually have to go and buy into some of that because that's cheap. And they were the ones that powered along through the recession. They were the ones that told the government to get bent when the government tried to force bailout money on them. And they were the ones that kept trucking along, and I think that they're going to do well. So I might have to get in on a little bit of that. Note, this is not stock advice. I am not a financial advisor. Disclaimer. Let's see what NPR had to say about this. This is from Avi Schneider. Dow expected to open up more than 1,100 points. Could this be a happy Friday the 13th on Wall Street? The Dow Jones Industrial Average is expected to jump more than 1,100 points as signaled by the futures market. Both the Dow and the S&P 500 index are expected to open up more than 5%. That comes just one day after the blue chip stock index posted its biggest drop since the Black Monday crash of 1987. European stock indices soared more than 8% on Friday. Investors are looking for positive signs on the coronavirus pandemic. Congress is getting closer to passing a measure to help cushion the blow of the virus, which has shut down many parts of the U.S. economy, and the Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank have announced aggressive steps to help banks and other businesses. On Thursday, the Dow fell 2,352 points, or about 10%, its biggest one-day drop since the Black Monday crash of October 1987. Major stock indices are down at least 27% from their recent record highs. The Dow has fallen nearly 8,400 points since February 12th. So, yeah, I think this is all coming back. And, I mean, honestly, here's reality. This summer, your cruises, your flights, and everything are going to boom because people are going to start buying now. A lot of people are still going to be panicked about it, but people are going to start buying. But people are canceling their vacation time, too, right now. And yes, with the gas down, they're going to go and drive places, and I do intend to do the same, but if they cancel their vacations and they go and take it somewhere else, they're going to want to go and make that flight again. And they're going to gather up some of the cheap flights now, and we're going to see. This is actually going to be a good thing towards the end, I predict. I can't say for sure, but yeah, I'm definitely, I think, going to be. Well, I'm not definitely going to be. I'm maybe going to be putting some money into, like, Princess Cruise Lines, Carnival Cruise, the airlines, your United, your Deltas, your stuff like that. I'm definitely considering doing that because you get them low, especially at this point where nobody wants to fly. We'll get those stocks low, and I mean, people are going to have to travel. Travel is going to be a thing for a long time, so if they drop low, it's going to be smart to go and do that. And yeah, we're all going to be fine on this, I think. I predict us fine by summer. Maybe even back to where we were. Maybe even a bit higher, who knows. But I see that coming. In the election, looks like they're getting ready to call California finally, which they have been counting and counting. I mean, there are a lot of people in California, but they've been counting for a very long time. California was a Super Tuesday state, which this is from Kate Sullivan and Jennifer Agista over at CNN. Bernie Sanders will win California, CNN projects. No way. No way. Bernie Sanders is going to win the biggest progressive stronghold in this country. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders will win California's Democratic primary, CNN projects, after holding a lead in the state since election night. Sanders held a wide lead at the end of election night counting, but his advantage over former Vice President Joe Biden has narrowed as the state continues to count votes cast by mail and provisional ballots. I wonder how many of those are legal. Sanders held. Oh, no, I read that already. Biden, however, has not gained enough support in those later votes to be able to overtake Sanders in the state. I mean, he got delegates out of it no matter what, so he cracked the 15% threshold. Warren was close enough, according to this chart here, to actually crack the threshold as well. She almost got to it, 13.2%. So she's not going to walk away with any California delegates, which I don't think she would have anyway, given the fact that she dropped out of the race, but she was close. Bloomberg was close too. So it's always interesting to watch California because they call it for the most progressive person on the ticket as soon as the polls close, and then they count and they wonder what happened here. So CNN's delegate estimate in the state currently shows Sanders winning 184 delegates to Biden's 144, with 81 delegates left to be allocated. 6 delegates in the state thus far have estimated to go to candidates who have already dropped out of the race. Elizabeth Warren, 5, and Bloomberg, 1. So, okay, I guess they are going to get delegates. I thought they had to crack 15% to get them, but yeah, I guess they are going to get some. So, yeah, and of course, I believe Bloomberg's delegates, because he backed Biden, will go to Biden, and then Warren hasn't pledged her delegates or her support to anybody else, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's interesting. Congratulations, California, for counting everything. So, but Russian collusion is back as well. So let's see what we have going on here. This is from CNN. Exclusive by Clarissa Ward, Katie Polglaze, Sebastian Shukla, Gianluca Mezzaflori, and Tim Lister. Why doesn't one person write an article? I've been wondering that since I started doing contemporary. Why doesn't one person write an article? Anyway. Accra, Ghana. The Russian trolls are back, and once again trying to poison the political atmosphere in the United States ahead of this year's elections. But this time, they're better disguised and more targeted, harder to identify and track, and they have found an unlikely home far from Russia itself. In 2016, much of the trolling aimed at U.S. elections operated from an office block in St. Petersburg, Russia. A months-long CNN investigation has discovered that in this election cycle, at least part of the campaign has been outsourced to trolls in the West African nation of Ghana and Nigeria. They have focused almost exclusively on racial issues in the U.S., promoting black empowerment and often displaying anger towards white Americans. The goal, according to experts who follow Russian disinformation campaigns, is to inflame divisions among Americans and provoke social unrest. The language and images used in the posts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are sometimes graphic. One of the Ghanaian, is that how you pronounce that? Trolls at Africa Must Wake linked to a story from a left-wing conspiracy website and commented on Facebook, America's descent into a fascist police state continues. So I'm going to say something again that I've said for a very, very long time. If it only takes a few $100 and some Facebook advertising to buy an election at this point, one, the American people are a lot dumber than I give them credit for. And two, I'm going to go out and buy a few elections because most Americans at this point, especially on election-wise, can outbid all these idiots. Absolutely. I don't know how much influence I have with this webcam and this microphone, but I'd like to think that with the approximately $200 I have invested in this project here, plus everything else that I have invested in Freedom Scoop at this point, I'd like to think that I have a bit more influence than these idiots from out of the country. These fringe Facebook pages that nobody pays attention to, and people. I don't understand this. And of course, now people on Twitter are calling other people Russian and foreign bots and foreign election influencers if they try and Viva la Revolution and say write in Bernie or write in Yang or something else stupid like that. So, yeah. They're already making up excuses for why they lose in 2016 or 2020 rather. They're already starting on this. So enjoy that for the next 3, 4, 5 years or however long it's going to be. Before we close out and shout out everybody who chatted in the live chat for the last week, let's go ahead and see what Mara Gay had to talk about here. This is from Fox News. New York Times Mara Gay mocked for attacking racist Twitter mob following MSNBC math fiasco. This is also from Joseph A. Wolfstone. That guy's busy over there. It's the third time we cited that guy this week. New York Times editorial board member Mara Gay had some choice words for the racist Twitter mob who went after her, who went after her after she and MSNBC anchor Brian Williams were mocked for sharing a botched math problem. First thing is first, we need to lay the blame firmly on Makita Rivas. I mean, there are 10,000 other links in the chain that are between Makita Rivas and Mara Gay at this point that also needed to go and get involved in this, but the blame for this needs to firmly be laid on Makita Rivas for botching this in the beginning. But let's move on. Last week, Gay and Williams marveled at a Twitter user's observation over presidential primary dropout Michael Bloomberg's campaign spending. The Super Tuesday post, now deleted, claims that the former New York City mayor spent $500 million on ads. The U.S. population is 327 million. He could have given each American $1 million and still had money left over. I feel like $1 million check would be life-changing for people, yet he wasted it all on ads and still lost. It's an incredible way of putting it, Williams gushed. It's an incredible way of putting it. It's true, Gay agreed. Alright, so yeah, we all know the story off of this, and of course Rivas went back and after it was pointed out that this was completely wrong and MSNBC blasted it out for the world to see, Rivas came out and said, and I quote, blah blah math, blah blah, was her response to this. So, reading down here, in an op-ed published Wednesday titled, My People Have Been Through Worse Than a Twitter Mob, Gay responded to what she called racist Twitter mob who went after her following her MSNBC appearance. I thought the flub was pretty funny too. I tried to laugh it off. Buying a calculator, I wrote on Twitter on Friday, BRB in normal time, that would have been the end of it. But the country has lost its mind, so instead it was only the beginning, Gay wrote. Gay singled out the right-wing trolls and the mostly male journalists who celebrated her blunder, then cited the racially charged responses she apparently received as well, including someone who told her she's a great example of why we need to end affirmative action. Others said she only fills a seat because you're black and have a banana, Gay wrote. So, I talked about this with Mrs. RRC and the R-rated conservative, and race never came up. And for most people that I listened to that talked about this, for most of the Twitter, or the Twitterati rather, that I discussed this with, we all came to the same conclusion that, I mean, this wasn't a racist. I didn't even realize that she was black. So pointing that out just kind of lends to the lens of the narrative in and of itself. I didn't realize at all that she was black, but apparently she is, and apparently she's taking offense to all of this, so. The other thing is, I mean, you look out into the world, and there are the racially charged people out there, and it's easy to go and find, and they're going to be the most vocal, too. They're going to be the ones that flood the inbox, because the rest of us didn't care. I read the article. I was more concerned about the fact that Rivas went out and doubled down on the fact that she thought that she was right, and nobody was going to tell her otherwise. I was more focused on that one than whatever it was that Mara Gay said. I didn't even know Mara Gay's name. Brian Williams, I knew who he was, but I just thought that it was just some staff member over at MSNBC who was co-anchoring all of this. And I think that was most of America's sentiment, too. You had the celebrity MSNBC host and the original poster. And that's all anybody in this country was focused on. But Now, because of some people, like the people who like to flood my Discord server, yeah, now we've got all of these people sitting out here who are going to get the attention that they deserve and desire, or don't deserve, but definitely desire off of this. They're going to get the attention because they're going to be the ones that are focused on. And I mean, Shapiro came out and said it. He said it best on this one here, and it's something that he shows as well. I mean, he could go through his comment section and probably find all the anti-Semitism in the world in his comment section because he's a fairly successful Jew that seems to have a great sway in the influence around the country. It would be very easy for him to go out and find the nastiest comments out there and blast them, but he gets mostly positive comments, and he also gets a lot of criticism that's not based on his race. So, yes, you can cherry pick the racism, or you can look at the broader picture here that nobody really cared that much. And the people who did care were idiots. All right, so it is Friday here. It's not going to be a contemporary-less weekend because we've got some other content coming up. But before we do anything here, we shout out on Friday the people who chat in the live chat because I don't shout you guys out live during the week here. So let's see who's going currently right now. First off, looks like we've got Spartan Subhuman sub to me now. Go over and check him out over there. He's definitely a mod on the DLive channel. Check out his DLive over there. Seawall's over here in a biosealed half track. Ron Helton is out here with the Bat Soup stickers. Welcome on in, guys. Thanks for hanging out. We also need to shout out the R-Rated Conservative for being in here earlier on in the week. Sully Blue has been a pretty mainstay throughout this entire week of live chat here. Pete the Patriot showed up on Tuesday, and I want to thank him for showing up out there. And everybody else who showed up to watch this and help make Contemporary the best show starting out on YouTube and DLive and Twitch and Twitter. Thanks everybody for coming in and hanging out with us. Thanks everybody for coming in, hanging out with each other, talking in the live chat, and just watching and making this a pretty popular show compared to what I had over on YouTube before. I've been looking at some of my growth, and it seems to be going up. My Podbean is going up, so thanks for helping out. Thanks everybody for coming and watching. We will have an Ed Talk coming up on Saturday, so we'll get your listener questions in. That'll be a live chat centered show. That'll be in the afternoon tomorrow. So, and tentatively right now, I think the R-Rated Conservative is going to be coming on for a live chat on Sunday at some point. We haven't worked out the time details yet, but just a chance so we can sit down and have a conversation and let the people on Freedom Scoop know who our newest podcaster is and what he stands for and what his goals intend to be. I actually do intend to take some time and do this for all the rest of the Freedom Scoop contributors, so look for that up in the near future. Look for Ed Talk tomorrow, and we will be back here with more Contemporary on Monday, and it looks like I'm actually going to have a presidential candidate on Ed's World on Monday as well. Soraya Fass, over on Twitter, I reached out to her. We'll talk about what she sees the news and how the libertarian response could have been to coronavirus. We'll talk a bunch about that. Until then, we will see you on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.